I'm Scott Horton. We're at tinychat.com/talkingliberty. Everybody let me know how my sounds are. Tonight on the show, Christina Tobin from Free and Equal will be here to talk about, well, free and equal elections. And they're hosting a third-party debate, which could be very important. And so that'll be cool. Haven't spoken with her in a while. In fact, that reminds me of a thing. I better write that here so I don't forget. Yeah, so anyway, that's coming up at the bottom of the hour. Christina Tobin from Free and Equal. And by the way, tomorrow, I guess I'll go ahead and tell you, on my other radio show, David Swanson is going to be on. And I'm actually not altogether clear. I'm going to have to look into it. I forget whether he's actually in Pakistan, went to Pakistan with this group, or he's just part of the group, helped organize it from here. But anyway, Code Pink, but plus a lot of other people too, have gone to Pakistan, different groups and all kinds of things, to go and witness the drone war there and to talk about what's going on. So that should be interesting stuff. I like David Swanson. He's, the best I can tell, most of his politics are pretty conventional liberal Democrat politics. But on war, he's hardcore. He's really hardcore. In fact, he wrote a book where he accuses Franklin Roosevelt of turning a blind eye to the incoming attack at Pearl Harbor. Now, that's not the kind of thing a polite Democrat would write in a book. But here he decided he was going to write a book called War is a Lie, and rather than pull punches for Democratic presidents, he slugs the hell out of them, because of course they deserve it. And so that to me speaks to his, intellectual honesty and integrity. So I really like David Swanson. He's the guy that used to run, it was called After Downing Street. Now it's warisalie.com. And he'll be on the show tomorrow, among others. I'm going to try to get somebody's lawyer on to talk about Omar Khadr, who this week was released from Guantanamo Bay and sent back to Canada, where he's from. Now, I guess I don't really have time tonight. I don't want to go through the whole litany of the story of Omar Khadr, but suffice it to say, he never committed a war crime. Even if he did what they said he did, he never committed a war crime. And what the U.S. government has done to him since that day that they dragged his near lifeless body out of a ditch, that's war crimes. Plain as day. Open and shut case, really. If there was such a thing as the law. Pretty open and shut case. So anyway, I don't know if this is really true or not, but the Canadians said that it was pressure from the Obama administration that made them go ahead and cry uncle and allow Khadr to be released to their custody. I say parole him. He was obviously railroaded into this plea bargain in the military commission, which is completely illegitimate in the first place, so let him go. Obviously, the boy's done his time. That's my position. That's the position of decent men and women on the planet. People who disagree with that are indecent. Simple as that. People say you can't just go around condemning everyone who disagrees with you all the time. Yeah, well, I can if they disagree with me about what was done to Omar Khadr, what ought to be done with him now. All right, so here's some news that I haven't had a chance to talk about on my other radio show, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to get off of my chest. Yes, chat room asked, the kid that supposedly threw a grenade. Yeah, that's his obviously tortured, coerced confession, is that, like some scene out of the A-Team, he pulled the pin out of the grenade, I think with his teeth or something, and chucked it back over the wall over his head. And, like something he saw on TV before, but didn't actually happen in real life. And then they say, oh, he killed a medic. Yeah, a medic with a machine gun that was shooting, who was not performing a medic role, but was actually a Delta Force combat operator at the time. So, it's unfortunate what happened to the guy, but is what it is. It's not a war crime to defend yourself from a foreign invasion. It's just a casualty of war. That's what happens. And anyway, it's highly doubtful Cotter had anything to do with the man's death whatsoever. It's just the guy that killed him got shot, and they decided they were just going to take it all out on him because it was the 15-year-old boy that lived through the damn battle. That's all. Anyway, you know what? I'm sorry I don't have it in front of me, but let me Google it for you because it just would not be right at all for me to not tell you this footnote. Because there's a great movie, a really great movie that was done all about him in an interview with a prison guard from the Bagram Air Base where he was beaten and tortured and threatened. And that's what it is. You don't like the truth. 4 days inside Guantanamo. That's the name of the movie. And you can watch scenes of his interrogation at Guantanamo on YouTube. It's all right there on YouTube. I just searched Omar Khadr, that's Khadr, movie. And it came up right there on the first page. And they show the poor kid being interrogated by the Canadians. And you can tell that the Canadian military intelligence officer who's questioning him, he knows that the kid's telling the truth. But he also knows that his job description is to pretend that he can't tell. It's horrible, man. It really is horrible. Anyway, so I highly recommend that, you know, standing on my tippy toes. You don't like the truth. That's the kid's complaint. I tell you the truth. You don't want to hear that. What do you want me to say? You don't like the truth. 4 days inside Guantanamo. And, boy, what a great name for a movie, huh? Doesn't that just sound like Americans? So, anyway, it ain't right, man. As simple as that, okay? All right, good. All right, now look, liberals. I love liberals. What can I say? I hate them too, but in a nice way. But I feel a little bit cuckoo because I feel like I've been driven cuckoo by liberals and the things that they think. I just don't know what to do with myself sometimes. So, here's Think Progress. That's the Center for American Progress. That's the Democrats who don't have government jobs right now, but basically their official Democrat think tank. And you know, their bloggers are really good on Iran issues. That's how to win friends and influence people. You say something nice whenever you can think of something nice to say. Okay? So, they've got some really great bloggers on Iran issues, especially in the past. They got in some trouble for how good they were on the issue. All right, but now, so here's this article. U.S. oil production is at highest level since 1997, yet gas prices remain, quote, stubbornly high. Oh, man, come on, guys. And you all get it already, right? I don't even have to get one sentence into this article. You already know what's the point. It's what's missing in here. The government keeps printing money. Dollars are worth less than ever before. It takes more of them than ever to buy a gallon of anything. Or a barrel full. That's your answer. Sorry. I mean, they go through, I don't know, 800 words or so here, trying to figure out, well, you just are a kook if you think that there's a correlation between production and prices. Yeah, well, I guess we're all a bunch of kooks, except the economists at the Think Progress blog. But here's the thing. This isn't just a joke. Inflation is not just taxation. It's not just, you know, the hidden tax, as critics like to say. It's not just stealing. It's not just dishonest. It's horribly destructive. And in very basic ways, and in fancy pants ones too. In very basic ways, inflation, that is, very high reserve or low reserve ratios where the banks are allowed to create tons of money out of nothing, where the government's creating tons of money out of nothing, loaning it to the banks, and then the banks are creating even more money out of nothing, and then making an excess amount of loans on that multiplier due to the artificially low interest rates by the kind of fake extra capital that wasn't really saved up, it's only just being printed. All that creates a situation where you or your grandma or your little sister or anybody else is a fool. A businessman is a fool to try to save money in order to, build up, improve their own situation. If you want to improve your own situation, you want to expand your business, whatever it is, buy a car, you take out a loan. You're a damn fool if you save up money and then buy a car cash. Because just do the math. You're losing on the price inflation every year. So yes, you have to pay interest, but hey, also you don't have to pay all up front. And you get the car now instead of having to basically pay a savings account to sit there and get the car someday in the future. And so with a car, with expanding a business, any kind of loan, any kind of anything, you'd be a fool to save when you can get an artificially cheap loan. And so that throws the whole dynamic of capitalism off, because the whole thing is kind of based not on savings and real capital anymore, but just on new credit. And then this is the fancy pants part, which ain't so fancy to me, really. It's just pretty simple. And this is, what's known as I think you probably know, right? The Austrian theory of the business cycle. This is what Ludwig von Mises and Friedrich Hayek say, and Murray Rothbard say about the boom and the bust. That the boom and the bust is not the natural excess of unregulated laissez-faire capitalism and these crazy top-hatted banker-type people just getting themselves into so much trouble they bring all of us down with them. It's not that at all. In fact, what it is it's a result of the government's manipulation of the currency. Now, that's oversimplification. It's the inflation of the currency. Now, private banks can do that, but they can only get so far doing that before they get themselves in too much trouble, before the competition or even their co-conspirators and their cartel refuse to play along with old Knickerbocker Trust, man. We just don't trust him anymore. He's out. That kind of thing. But with a government central bank, that means they have the police power and the printing press and the George Washington fancy design that makes it look legitimate because it's a government piece of paper to stay in business no matter what, with the government as the lender of last resort, subsidizing banks to make bad loans and telling them, they called it the Greenspan put, but it's not. It's the Warburg put. This has been the name of the game of the Federal Reserve System since it was created. They are the lender of last resort. They are there to bail out banks, to encourage them in the first place to go ahead and make bad loans, because if you can't collect on them, you'll get bailed out by the taxpayer anyway. At the same time, there's a terrible effect of all the artificially cheap money, which is that things that are bigger projects, like expanding giant businesses to be even more giant, those kinds of projects seem misleadingly to be good ideas and good investments at a time of the artificial prosperity driven by artificially cheap money and artificially low interest rates. The bank is telling, say, I don't know, let's pretend there are five, and I'm probably ripping off someone else's great analogy and ruining it, pardon me, okay, for the plagiarism. I don't even know whose credit deserves, whatever, but just, maybe this is mine, I forget. But pretend there's three major quarry companies in the whole country, just to make it easy, right? And now it's good times, and they're churning out bricks, and they're churning out pavement for new roads and all this during a giant housing boom. Now, they got to buy up more property. They got to hire more employees. They got to retool and get new and fancier machines. And while they're doing so, in the good time, they're driving down their cost per unit weight of brick or, bag of concrete or whatever, and driving their profits up so that even if one of the, say, that's two of the quarry companies, but the third quarry company is run by a guy who even understands Austrian economics and understands that all this money that they're getting at these artificially cheap rates is artificially cheap, that there's really not that much savings in the world, and that actually the real market doesn't demand such an expansion of their quarry. Well, if they don't play along at the same time as the other companies, they're going to get beaten in the short term. They've got to get their costs down now, volume-wise, or they're going to get eaten alive. They're not going to make it till the rainy day. So, in other words, even a wise company is coerced by the government-manipulated market forces into participating in a boom, even if he knows better. And so he has to also hire new labor, get better machines, buy up more property, churn out more volume so he can drive his costs down so that he can stay in business. And then what happens? When the housing bubble pops, when it turns out it wasn't just the quarries, but it was the lumber yards, it was the trucking companies, it was the Mexican hammer-swinging laborers, it was everybody was being artificially subsidized to do a bunch of jobs that didn't need doing. The granite countertop guys, for everybody who already had a house, was just refinancing it and redoing their kitchens on borrowed money. All of that was all just big, bad bets. All of it driven by artificially cheap money. And in the case of my, phony quarries that I made up here, the quarry company owners and management who knew better are just as screwed as the other guys because they were induced into it. And so even Karl Marx, somewhere at Mises.org one time, I read a quote of Karl Marx saying, look at how stupid capitalism is. When you have a warehouse full of stuff that nobody can afford and nobody wants and is just, going to waste, and then you also have a line full of people who are wanting for things. What a terribly destructive system capitalism is with its terrible boom and bust, wrote the original commie, Karl Marx. And yet, it wasn't capitalism that had caused the problem. Not then in Germany, and not in wherever else anybody else described that boom and the bust. It's the government especially serving as the backstop for the bank's creation of new money, fractional reserve money. And the thing is, too, about this, and I guess maybe more I'm bridging a gap to liberals than conservatives on this issue or something like that, but you don't have to really, and hell, to conservatives too, you don't have to agree with libertarians on what ought to be done about any of this, about any of it. You might even say, you know what, the artificial boom and the bust, it's bad, but you know what, without the government creating all that new money, they'd have to raise our taxes so high that we'd all just starve. So I guess we prefer this, right? You could totally disagree. You could say, I want the government to be able to create all this money so that they can guarantee the safety net welfare state for old people and sick people and disabilities and whatever. And yeah. You could totally disagree about what is to be done about, with me, with any libertarian, about the fact of the boom and bust, about the nature of the welfare state, the regulatory state, or even the foreign empire. But what you can't really do is argue the cause of the boom and the bust cycle anymore. You just can't argue it. The Austrians were the ones who were right, and everybody else is wrong. And everybody else, and that means the Chicago school is just a subset of the Keynesian school. All they are is right Keynesianism, supply-side intervention instead of demand-side intervention. But, in other words, intervention on behalf of the people who already have everything, instead of pretending like you even care about little people, right? That's the entire consensus. And they all agree, outside of the Austrian school, and they all agree that after they've accidentally, you argue about accidentally if you want, but after they have created a giant artificial prosperity and a giant bubble that then crashes and pops, the only solution is to do it again. And you're a crazy, lunatic, fringe, gold bug weirdo or something if you're not in on that consensus that we must reinflate the bubble that got us into this. Well, despite all your brainwashing by conservatives and liberals alike, by government school teachers and conservative businessmen and everybody else, what we really need is anarchy. What we really need is an absolutely free market. A free market in judges, a free market in cops, a free market in everything. But at least as many things as you possibly can. And we most especially need a free market in money. We need a free market in money. Because this system where the banks, in cooperation with the government, get to create as much new credit as they want out of nothing in order to save each other and themselves all the time, it's what ails us, man. And now, here's where the rubber meets the road for you. And I'm switching to Africa stories in just a second. But here's my real point. Suicide, now lead cause of injury death in the United States. You see that? That's what inflation does. That's not soldier suicides coming home from the wars where they've been betrayed and backstabbed and lied to and abandoned. This is just regular folks in America. Across the board now, the leading cause of injury death is suicide. And that one's from a couple of days ago. This one's from yesterday, October the 1st. Child abuse injuries have risen. Study finds. Protective agencies report a decline, but hospital data tell a different story. And I don't know, they're going kind of pretty far back, actually. But, I was reminded of the book Secrets of the Temple by William Greerder, who is basically, he's a Washington Post editor. So he wrote, the very official version of The Creature from Jekyll Island, right? In other words, it's a pro-inflation book. It's a book critical of Paul Volcker for fighting a war against inflation. And he makes some good points in context. Anyway, but the point I'm thinking of is in that book, he talks about how at the Federal Reserve Board Open Market Committee, all their little staffers, they compile, at least in the 80s they compile the rates of divorce, of suicides, of bankruptcies, of all different descriptions, of foster care, of children's visits to the emergency room because of violence at the hands of their caregivers. The Federal Reserve keeps those statistics because they knew before I did, that I'm right, that it's their fault. They manipulate the money in America. They drive the boom and the bust, and they make people suffer by the millions in uncounted ways, in invisible ways. I mean, why are these men blowing their brains out? Why, especially, late 2008, 2009, early 2010, to read the AP Wire was to read, man kills children, wife, self, sometimes her mom too. And just, whoa, and it was, and it's still bad. I think the press reporting of it has probably gone down quite a bit. But what was behind that epidemic of suicides, where it's now the leading cause of injury death in America? It's ignorance. That's what it is. All these breadwinners don't know that it's not their fault. All these breadwinners think they were free, they had their chance, they were supposed to be able to take care of their family, and now look at them, ruined. And in so much debt, they don't know what the hell they're going to do. And they can't friggin' take it anymore. And little do they know that it's somebody else's doing. It's forces arrayed against them. Forces on Wall Street and in Washington, D.C. They use police power to manipulate the currency, to cause the boom and the bust that's destroyed their lives. Simple as that. The commies ain't right. They never were. It ain't capitalism's fault. Yes, capitalists, businessmen by the millions are guilty of all kinds of fraud, especially, well, I don't know by the millions, but You know, you want to hold a giant lynching party on Wall Street for everybody guilty of fraud. I say hang them first, trial later. I don't care. I'm with you. I'm not acquitting the capitalists. I'm acquitting capitalism. It wasn't capitalism that did this to us. It was the government. Same as always. Holy crap, and I have so little time now. I wanted to talk about the invasion of Africa. Now, there's so much to go over here. I think the most obvious thing, of course, is that the U.S. government, in alliance with France and Britain and whatever, they fought a war for Al-Qaeda, for the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group. The kooks from Benghazi, the ones who were the veterans of the Iraq War, where they fought against our guys in the last 10 years. That's who they fought the war for. And that's why the ambassador's dead. Because he was surrounded by his enemies. Because he was working for an empire that's dumber than dog crap. And so while they're killing Libyan Al-Qaeda guys in Pakistan, they've got their ambassador standing there basically undefended, surrounded by Libyan Al-Qaeda guys in Libya. And on September 11th, they came and they killed him. Now, I'm defining Al-Qaeda quite broadly here. But yeah, no, I mean, some of these guys were Al-Qaeda in Iraq who went and traveled to Iraq just to fight in the suicide bombing war. I guess they weren't the ones who suicide bombed themselves. But you can read all about Abdullah Hakim al-Belhaj and that guy al-Hasidi, and both of those guys in the Telegraph going, yeah, I killed Americans in Afghanistan and Iraq. That's who they are. Okay, so now the war there led to, of course, the defeat of Gaddafi. It took a long time, but they finally got rid of him after 8 or 9 months of special forces and air war against him. And then his hired guns, the Tuareg mercenaries from Mali, they fled in defeat, but they brought their weapons with them down to Mali. Now, Mali, the Tuaregs, that's some kind of ethnicity over there in the eastern Sahara Desert. They kind of had autonomy from the capital of Mali, Timbuktu, and the government there, which is, I don't know if they're Arabs or what, Berbers, some other different kind of ethnicity. Anyway, so when all the Tuareg mercenaries came home from Libya with all these heavy weapons, they decided, hey, why settle for autonomy when we can secede from the Union? And they set about seceding from the Union. Now, when you hear the Obama administration finally admitting that, no, it wasn't a riot caused by somebody else, had nothing to do with them, it was an Al-Qaeda attack coordinated on the anniversary of September 11th, an attempt to kill this guy. He wrote in his own diary, the ambassador did, that he was on their hit list and they were after him. Now that they finally admitted it, what do they admit? That it was some local Benghazi Al-Qaeda guys that they just fought a war for that did it? No. They go make up these probable lies, 99% chance it's a lie, that it was Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, which is basically a small and ain't accomplished very much little group created by you and I don't really know exactly who in Algeria, who have hardly ever done anything noteworthy yet. Although maybe the ones down in Mali causing trouble and destroying Sufi shrines in Timbuktu and trying to start a civil war, where the Tuaregs are actually from there, have changed their mind about that and would rather, stave off the violence and just be happy with the autonomy they already had. But so here's the Obama administration literally pretending that history just started yesterday and that now they may have to intervene against this group, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, that's come down to Mali. And I got one last thing I just want to point out before we go to our guest who's now joined us. It's defensenews.com. This really sums up our entire Africa policy here. It's just ridiculous. U.S. units Africa deployment will test new regional concept. And it's about the Dagger Brigade. And this is what it says. Based at Fort Riley, Kansas, the Dagger Brigade will be the first regionally aligned brigade. I'm sorry, it's a very long run-on sentence here. It will be the first regionally aligned brigade the Army will field as part of a new initiative to keep non-deploying units engaged globally. Now that rotations to Iraq have ended, Deployments to Afghanistan are winding down, and the service is looking for ways to stay globally engaged. Well, it's not very good writing, engaged globally and globally engaged and whatever, but in other words, the Army's looking for work, and they're running out of continents to pretend they have enemies on, and so who's left is the Africans, so look out. As simple as that. They don't have anything to do, and the last thing they're going to do is go get a real job, and so you're going to pay them to kill Africans. As simple as that. That's as plain and honest English as you can get right there from defensenews.com. U.S. Army looking for work will kill Africans. All right, good. Now, it's time to go to our guest, Christina Tobin from Free and Equal. That's freeandequal.com. Hi, how are you doing? Good to see you.
Hi, good evening, Scott.
Sorry you can't see me.
How are you doing?
Anyway,
All's well here.
Good to talk to you. Oh, I better turn you up. I can't hear you very well. Say again. I'm sorry, can you say it again? I couldn't hear you very well.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yeah, there you go. I just need to turn you up louder. So welcome to the show. You are putting on a third-party debate. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're putting on an all-inclusive presidential debate on October 23rd at the University Club of Chicago.
All-inclusive meaning you've invited the president and the governor to join in as well?
Yes, we've invited the top candidates, including Romney, Obama. We have 4 candidates confirmed: Gary Johnson with the Libertarian Party, Jill Stein with the Green Party, Virgil Goode with the Constitution Party, and Rocky Anderson with the Justice Party.
Virgil Goode. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm taking notes here. I should have all this in front of me anyway. So that's really good. Now, did I read something about Roseanne Barr is running for president as something or another? I thought she was the Green.
Yeah, actually, there's at least 22. I think there's at least 22 to 25 candidates running on the ballot, running for president, that is, throughout the United States that are on the ballot in at least one state, and Roseanne Barr is one of them, yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And I'm sure you've invited her to join in, right? Or she's just in one state, or what?
She's not invited. We're only inviting the top 6 candidates. The candidates that are on the ballot in enough states to be viably electable or have received 1% in a national poll. I wish I could moderate all 22, but it'd be pretty hard to do.
Right, yeah, that's not easy. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you an anecdote now. So it's 1996, and it was late at night, and I was flipping through the channels, and I saw the third-party debate. And it was like 5 people. They had the Natural Law Party and the Reform Party and the Transcendental Meditation Party and whatever. And they were all up there, and including Harry Browne. And this was the first time I ever saw Harry Browne or heard of the Libertarian Party, actually. And so there was Harry Browne, and the one answer that I really remember more than anything is when they asked him about abortion, he said, well, I have a personal opinion, but it's none of your business, because I'm only running for president. And since I don't have as president, any authority over that issue whatsoever, my personal opinion on that issue is of no relevance to this conversation. And I thought, wow, somebody running for president who wants to deny there's a limit to his authority, you know, or wants to explain there's a limit to his authority. Isn't that neat? And so that was my first exposure to Harry Browne. So I guess I like to think that with you hosting this debate, that something like that could happen, right? There are going to be some 16-year-olds out there, people who are just beginning to think about important political issues for the first time, who say, wow, a third-party debate with all of these candidates in it who are excluded from the rest of the debate, you know? So I just think that's really important. I'm really glad that you're doing it.
You know, Scott, what's really exciting about this debate is that we're uniting candidates across the spectrum. We have 2 on the left, Jill Stein, Green, Rocky Anderson, Justice Party. We have 2 on the right, Gary Johnson, Libertarian, Virgil Goode with the Constitution Party. And these candidates, debate is going to be, well, I reckon it's going to be more of a discussion across the spectrum. And I don't know, some say they're going to create awareness about the two-party, the stranglehold of the two-party system throughout the United States. But in any case, we truly are a grassroots organization here at Free Equal, and we have dozens of sponsors lining up. We just had linktv.com, a huge satellite TV station. They're going to be covering the debate, as well as we expect many other national entities as well. So we're 3 weeks out from the debate. We wouldn't be where we are today without grassroots leaders, supporters helping us to get the kind of exposure that we've already gotten and we're about to get at a whole different level in the next couple of days. So I am so fortunate and so glad to be here on libertychat.com, working with you and Ian and all these dynamite organizations and media. You are the guys that are going to make it successful.
Well, I got to tell you, this should be a great year for third-party candidates, especially with the two standard bearers of the two major parties.
It should be, but I think that people are recognizing parties really don't work. The Democratic Republican Party, our forefathers in the Constitution didn't even mention parties. What I do foresee is this discussion coming about of this debate. In 2013, Free and Equal will hold conferences throughout the United States, maybe even internationally, definitely in the future, educating and informing voters about, from the drug war to war to electoral reform, GMO, all these different topics. And we're going to create these panel discussions, and we hope that we are going to be able to inspire, by working with grassroots groups across the spectrum, a national movement to take back our government, to inspire people to run for office as individuals, not as parties. We want to shift the power back to the state, not the federal level, back to the people. And there's far more good people in the world than there are not good. And unfortunately, the people in control of our government today are the ones that are maybe not so good, but we totally have them outnumbered.
Yeah. Well, you're right, certainly, that the parties are not described in the Constitution, but they do seem to be kind of an immediate result of it, just because everything is winner take all with a 51% majority, which means anybody wants anything has to build a coalition. And so, among the so-called right, you have your big businessmen and your Christian fundamentalists and, your different kind of factions, a military-industrial complex and whatever. And then, of course, on the left, you got your labor unions and your trial lawyers and most ethnic minority groups and that kind of thing. And they all come together to form, generally speaking, the left side alliance against the right. And they oftentimes have, quite conflicting interests with themselves, but they've decided that at least it's better than the other guys, and they're fighting for that bare 51%, and that goes precinct for precinct, district for district throughout the country, as you well know. So it's very difficult for someone to just say, I'm running against the parties because I'm a real person like you guys out there, because us guys out here really aren't organized enough to help somebody really win to be that coalition. You know what I mean? You know better than I do.
I couldn't agree more. Leaders like Ron Paul, Ralph Nader, they've endorsed free and equal elections, and we hope that they'll be sitting in the front row at this debate. We held a debate back in 2008, and there was Constitution Party Chuck Baldwin and Independent Ralph Nader. I see somebody in the chat room asked about that. It aired on C-SPAN nationwide. We were the only debate, all-inclusive, to include alternative candidates. But I could agree with you more. The free and equal is about educating, not only in all these issues, but the electoral issue is really a big one. The number one reason Ron Paul, he told us in 2008, didn't run for president the last time around, that is because of the restrictive ballot access. Obviously, ballot access is a big issue, getting millions of signatures upwards to get candidates in the ballot. Then we go into voter fraud, open source software, black box software, electoral issues like the closed debates, the commission on the presidential debates. Well, it's run by the former chair of the Democratic and Republican Party. That's anything but nonpartisan. And finally, experts on proportional representation, instant runoff voting. Our electoral system is rigged. It's rotten to the core. And here at Free and Equal Elections, we plan on launching a nationwide database listing every single candidate running for office. We'll be working with groups from, libertycandidates.com to, Richard Winger, Ballot Access News, Fair Vote. All these different groups, uniting them and educating and inspiring these candidates, to represent the people.
By the way, I'm sorry to divert off of the point, but you mentioned Richard Winger, and at least the last I heard, he was in a terrible crisis. And if you can tell people the story of what was going on with, the war of the state of California versus this kind gentleman.
I would be more than happy to do that. And ironically, the first question at our debate will be on this topic called the Top 2 Primary. In 2010, Prop 14, also known as Top 2, passed. Over $5 million in funding pushed us through. What is Top 2? Well, it's the biggest threat to our electoral system ever. What it means, only the top 2 vote getters in the primary will be on the ballot for the general election. It could be 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats. Third parties and independents in California will cease to exist within 2 election cycles. Libertarians, Green, Peace and Freedom Party, so on, will no longer exist. This is now spreading across the nation. It's Louisiana-style politics in Louisiana, of course, California, Washington State. What unfortunately has happened to Richard Winger, I actually attended at the Superior Court a couple of weeks ago. We're fighting against it. But the proponents that are up in support of Top 2, the plaintiffs, Richard Winger being one of them, against Top 2 to pay, I believe, over $243,000 in legal fees. So we're currently fighting that and confident we're going to prevail. But even more up and coming is Arizona's Prop 121. The money behind this in California is tied to corporations, Charles Munger, which is the Warren Buffett. Essentially, they want to make the 2-party system become one. Corporate America, owned by corporations, special interests. It is unfortunately on the ballot in Arizona on Prop 120. I'm flying out there on Monday, and we're holding a panel discussion there next Tuesday at the Goldwater Institute.
Oh, that's good. Make sure to mention that at the end, too, for people to come out, and I'll give you a chance to go over all of the websites and contact info and events and everything else. I hope, if we get a chance. Now, you probably didn't see it, but I gave this little talk at the Paul Festival in Tampa about how I wanted Ron to keep running. And I wanted him to run, but with Dennis Kucinich as his running mate. But instead of making it a third-party candidacy, they should have made it a second-party candidacy. And then they could have made the whole thing, kind of a joke at the expense of Obama and Romney, that those two ought to be running together. Romney ought to replace Biden on Obama's ticket, and then we could really have a 2-party system, peace and freedom on one side and the war party on the other, and then the American people would finally have a real choice instead of this phony choice of these 2 centrist extremists, power mongers up there. And so, really it's just a rhetorical thing, because I knew, for the reasons you said, Ron Paul had said over and over, and I knew he meant it, that he was not running as a third-party candidate no matter what, because it's just too much hassle. It's ridiculous. The deck is so stacked, and the democracy, so-called, is so broken that just forget it. I mean, and there's, to me, such an important lesson in that here, old man Paul, who loves running these symbolic runs, he just does not have the fortitude for this one to do it third party. But, anyway, I think the point is that I was hoping to get across anyway was just how similar the 2 candidates are this time, even symbolically. You know what I mean? Like George W. Bush, he was from Connecticut, but he looked like he was from West Texas. So he seemed like he was something different from Al Gore. You know what I mean? In that way, when really they were very much alike. But these 2, Obama and Romney, I mean, I honestly confuse their names all the time. Almost every time I say one of their names, I get it wrong and say the other guy, because I really do confuse them that much. And I see other people doing that too. So I hope that this year it's so blatant and so horrible that we'll have, a brand new kind of unprecedented wave of people coming in to your kind of movement to say, you know what, something's got to be done here. We're fed up. Enough is enough. This is not working. Maybe it's all a rigged game against us, etc. Because most people just they figure if it's this way, then it must be the right way, or else why would it be this way? But I think people they kind of got to get shocked out of that way of thinking. Sorry, I'm just yelling now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, when you compare the Democratic and Republican Party, it's kind of like, an analogy of heading towards a cliff. Would you rather get in the car that's going 70 miles an hour with Obama or 60 miles an hour with Romney? I mean, no matter what, every day it seems like Romney's now 62 miles, 64. I mean, they might as well both be 70. Couldn't agree more. And all the more reason why the two-party system doesn't work. And so we are here at Free and Equal Elections, again, to shift the power back to the people, back to the origins of the Constitution. Our founding fathers even said, that Madison and Jefferson, that, the party system is evil. And really, parties started to derive and started to really take off the two-party stranglehold back in 1870 through the creation of the Austrian ballot in 1870. And then you have FUCA in the 30s, 40s kicking into gear, and then, of course, Woodrow Wilson, signing in the Federal Reserve, I believe, and, him even saying that he regretted that. So we know these candidates, the real problem here is the money in politics. Special interest money, Democrats, Republicans alike, that's tied into the central bank, which is tied into the Federal Reserve. And then there's some big people behind the Federal Reserve, Rockefeller, Rothschild, and all that. I mean, there's just, it's a very bad thing. So we're here to just educate and inform and let people know how this all ties together, and essentially we want to shine a light on special interest money in politics and see the cockroaches scatter. And people like you and I ran for office back in 2010, Secretary of State in California, 28. If I can do it, anybody can do it. I as a leader, you as a leader, Scott, and everybody within this liberty movement, our job as leaders is to create more leaders, not followers. That's a quote from Ralph Nader.
Yeah, well, that's a good one. All right, now, so I wonder, with all the right and the left always accusing each other of different kinds of ballot access shenanigans and fraud, I just assume that they're all guilty. But I wonder where you come down on issues like, for example, the right always pushes for voter ID. And the left says, well, you're just trying to disenfranchise poor people who don't have IDs because they got warrants out and whatever, but they still ought to be able to show up and vote. So there's that. And then there's also, of course, the liberal complaint against things like Citizens United that legalizes Karl Rove just assembling a secret gaggle of billionaires who can set up these super PACs and make sure that Romney's their guy if that's who they choose, for example. So could you tackle those two for us?
Sure. I mean, they're all, big issues. Some argue that whether it's voter ID and Citizens United, obviously don't like the idea of corporations being involved in politics. So next to top two, which we're trying to defeat in Arizona, Citizens United is nothing compared to that. Some say, when we go into from pro-choice, pro-life, all these different topics, guns, whatever, it can be a bit of a distraction. I'm not saying these issues aren't important, but my role at Free and Equal is to unite the experts to talk about these topics. Yes, there probably is, or there is voter fraud. How do we fix it? Do we have open source software? These are the kind of things that we hope to develop and have ideas and resolutions for in 2013. I don't know the answer yet. But I do know the Democrats and Republicans have known that voter fraud has been around for a long time, and then suddenly it's a big issue this year, as if it hasn't been going on for a decade or two or even more, Acorn and so on. So, again, it's all about, what party, R's and D's, how they can get more votes. And, I just see right through it. And the bigger issue is that we have people in office, Democrats and Republicans alike, that don't represent me. They don't represent you. Anybody watching this video right now, they represent the money in their pockets. The day they get elected, they work to campaign and get reelected again. So do I feel Citizens United was just? Probably not. But, I mean, again, there's bigger issues to address. The Supreme Court, for example, our judicial system is just flawed. It's rotten to the core as well. Supreme Court, they're appointed by people in office, are elected officials who are infiltrated by bad money. So I mean, those decisions that they make, though some do make great decisions, I think they more so make not good decisions. We hope to have an impact on the judicial system as well with everything that we're doing. So we're just creating that momentum, that positive energy, and that answer. And we're growing so rapidly every day. And I couldn't do it without, I'm here to, we're free and equal. We're here to build others. It's that simple. Our agenda is just to make not only America but the world a better place. And that's really the extent of it.
Mm. Okay, well, speaking of which, who can you recommend then that's really good on issues like, for example, voter ID, or whether that's a good idea or not, or where's a good debate about that issue, or something like some
Rob
that
Ritchie.
I think
Rob
people all
Ritchie.
across the country really see the at least potential problem with the computerized voting, where there is no real stack of ballots to be recounted. All you can do is just hit the damn enter button again and get the same number again. So, and there's the questions of hacking and all that kind of stuff. So, who do you recommend to send people to go to learn more about things like that?
Well, I think at least short term, it's important to understand the whole electoral stuff as a whole. And a great entity for that right now is fairvote.org, fairvote.org. As far as black box voting and all, I know there's a lot of entities out there, and we'll be connecting with them the end of this year and early next year after the election. So I'll be sure to send you over a link for those organizations. There are vetted, trusted experts out there, but I have to make a call or two to find out who they are, and we're just not there yet. We're focusing so much on the presidential debate. Again, the top two panel discussion at Goldwater Institute, we're going to be holding next Tuesday, October 9th at 11 a.m. We have linktv.com, Russia Today. The news is already lining up. The Legal Women Voters of Arizona is our facilitator. We have the co-chair of the Green Party of Arizona on the panel. We have the communications director of the Libertarian Party. We have the Republican with Free the Vote, Arizona, the big group in Arizona focusing their efforts against the top two. He's the legal counsel. And finally, we have a Democrat we're about to announce as well. So really across the spectrum, no politicians needed. This is about the people talking about the biggest threat to our electoral system. So and later on, as you see this panel discussion, when you watch it, imagine what we're doing there, focusing on issues on war, and drugs, and electoral issues, voter fraud, so many different things. What people want is what we'll bring to them.
All right, well, I'm not very good at this, but I should be better at inviting people in the chat room to take part in the discussion. If they have any questions, I believe, Christina, you'll be happy to entertain them, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, again, I'd be happy if anybody has any questions to hop on board. The more the merrier. And if you want to know more about presidential debate, check out the information at Free and Equal, freeandequal.org. Again, freeandequal.org. And I mean, we're so fortunate to be doing what we're doing, and we're planning on doing a lot of bigger things in the future. Not only sponsoring and hosting presidential debates, but gubernatorial debates, Senate, even state, local, all those sort of things. I anticipate our leaders across the spectrum, across the country, that is, we'll be helping to organize those things. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to hop on board. And
again, I guess you said at the beginning, but it's October the 23rd at the University Club of Chicago is this third-party debate, which with at least 4 candidates signed up for it already, which should be good. And I like Gary Johnson. He's no Harry Brown to me, but then again, I pretty much worship Harry Brown. But Gary Johnson, he's a good guy, and I'd like very much to hear a good and just a real political debate by people who mean what they say and care about what it is they're talking about, not just their own ambition for a change. That's what's really great about seeing a third-party debate is real human beings, not these damn lizards up there, the usual winners. All right, now there was a question here. Are there already plans for a second debate, or are you going to wait and see how the first one goes, Christy?
Anything's possible. I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, we did I think about it now, but we didn't do I'm sorry, in 2008, we did a vice presidential debate, I think 2 days before the election. It was really successful out at the University of Arizona. So I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, if the people really want to have another one, why not? Why not go to D.C. with these candidates and just do it at the Mayflower Hotel again? Yeah. Do we have any plans yet? No, but would do it? Yeah, possibly. We're putting all of I'd love to have a debate. I would have loved to have one a month ago, but it's hard to bring these candidates in, and we got all four of them, and now we have 3 weeks still to promote, and I mean, I can't even tell you, Scott, you're actually going to be really excited about this one. I'm pretty confident about that. So, great question.
I can't wait.
It's definitely something I'll consider, here listening to the people. Yeah.
All right, now they're asking, do you have a deal with C-SPAN? Are they going to show up?
Somebody asked, will it be on? It's in the works. I feel confident they will. So our contact in 2008, C-SPAN, she's awesome out in D.C. She's connected us with higher up in Chicago, and we've got that in the works. So
great. What about YouTube?
I feel confident they'll be there. It's technology is really possibly. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're going to have more sponsors tomorrow. I think Al Jazeera is going to hop on board, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This is a terrible format for interrupting you so much. I was just going to say I saw that YouTube is making a big deal about how they're going to be streaming the other debates live and that kind of thing. And, they might be very interested in this for their own reasons. So I would highly recommend approaching them on it. They might be excited to participate in something like this.
Yeah, I'm texting my guy right now. Can you reach out to YouTube, one of our awesome, amazing supporters who's been doing all this. So we'll go ahead and do that as well. I love the idea, and I love the idea of a second debate because in 2008 we put together that presidential debate, I don't know, in 24, 48 hours. So it's not really hard if you can get 4 candidates confirmed to do it, pretty quickly again. So yeah, I definitely am confident C-SPAN will be there again. It looks like we're going to have a satellite truck, one of our supporters outside of the club, University Club. So we're going to have it on a satellite. I mean, so it's just going to be really awesome, pretty exciting. And yeah, I see somebody there, Al Jazeera. Yeah, I'm pretty confident they're going to be. I think we're not even going to have room. There's going to be people like in the hallway. It's going to be so amazing.
Awesome. Well, again, this is the year for it. There's so much discontent with these two candidates, the both of them. I think this really could be something else. I'm sure this is going to be a historical event, a memorable occasion, and I can't wait for it. So everybody, please check out freeandequal.org and learn all about the upcoming debate. All of the top 6 candidates are invited. It's October the 23rd, Tuesday, October the 23rd, at the University Club of Chicago. You can find all the information there at freeandequal.org. And thank you very much, Christina Tobin, for your time tonight on the show. Please say the name of any other website or any other resource that you want to direct people's attention toward before I let you go here.
Sure. I mean, we wouldn't be able to do this without our sponsors. Our sponsors, and it's grown, the Josh Tolley Show to Ballot Access News, Muslims for Liberty, National Constitution Party, the Justice Party, Restore Republic, Tea Party, Free the Vote North Carolina, We the People, Grassroots for Liberty, the New Progressive Alliance. We hope and we anticipate Amy Goodman with Democracy Now! Will be on board soon. Al Jazeera, C-SPAN. We have linktv.com as a sponsor. They're huge satellite, multi-millions, 20, 30, I don't even know, millions. It's like 1 in every 3 households television stations. They're so big and so awesome. So thanks to all the supporters out there. A lot of people from Paul Festival and down in Florida are helping us out. Gary Franchi, Restore the Republic. Zach Carter has been so cool. He's been such a helpful person. And I'm so thankful to be surrounded by such great people. And Scott, all of the work you've done before with anti.com here now with Liberty Chat. I commend you for, just being at this every day. And I can't wait for you to see that the world is going to become a better place.
Cool, right on. Well, thanks very much, and thank you very much for your time on the show tonight, Christina. Good to see you again.
Thank you for having me, Scott. Take care.
And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm here every Tuesday night from, 8 to 9 Texas time, which is what really counts if you ask me, right? 9 to 10 Eastern. And my regular radio show is from 11 to 1 Texas time, noon to 2 Eastern, weekdays at noagendastream.com. Check out my archives at scotthorton.org. I appreciate you guys hanging out. See you next week.